Hello everyone, so during this YouTube video today, I'm happy to say we'll be finishing off my Godzilla -1 project today. The first order of business today will be finishing off the spikes, I do say. Then once all those pointy details are done, we'll be on to the third layer of clay, you could say. Where Godzilla -1 will be getting thick, I do say. I think it's easy to say this -1 is about 3 pounds of plasticine fun. He is definitely a big one, this -1. But once the third layer of clay is out of the way, one could say we'll be on to the small details, I do say. But once all the nitpicky stuff is done on our -1, we'll be taking him to our Lego town for some future foreshadowing fun. But as I sculpt away on this -1 today, we'll be learning some fun facts about this upcoming movie today, you could say. So before I get too carried away with the poetry today, let's learn more about -1 the movie, I do say. Godzilla has fought against countless monsters throughout the years. Creatures of unimaginable strength. Alien monstrosities, mutants, and robotic menaces. But one thing he has never had to conquer is himself. He has of course fought against a freak of nature clone, aka Space Godzilla, and an alien robot disguised as him, as well as Zilla, or 1998 Godzilla. But he has never had to duke it out with another official king of the monsters in a bid for supremacy. But what if Godzilla -1 not only had one Godzilla, but two? And they will battle it out to become the last monster standing. There is evidence to suggest that may be the case. So let's go over why two Godzillas might fight in Godzilla -1. -1 looks to revisit the post-war era for the first time in decades, going back to a time where the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was still raw in the population of Japan. Godzilla is the physical embodiment of that level of destruction or that disaster. Going back to that era will help bridge the connection to make the most horrifying representation of the horrors of nuclear war since Godzilla's very inception. And the trailer reflects that, giving us images that haunt back to a darker time. But will the film be a by-the-numbers remake of Godzilla 1954, or will it be something else? Like in Shin Godzilla, I'm inclined to believe there will be a twist on the formula. And a 4chan leak suggests this may be the case. Now take this leak with a grain of salt. I'm not confirming this is happening for sure, but there is evidence that leans in favor of this direction. And yeah, spoiler warning, just in case these leaks end up being legit. According to the leak, G-Man won't be alone in this film and will be joined by another one of his species that was unaffected by the nuclear radiation, being very similar but also distinct in many ways. With the Godzilla we see in the trailer having rough mutated skin and warped bony dorsal plates, whereas the natural specimen has smooth whale-like skin and cranial proportions very similar to a orca, as well as some large fin-like dorsal plates emphasizing the oceanic qualities of this monster even further, which has a silhouette that's pretty much exactly like the -1 poster. Although this still could be a stylized G, and personally it does rather kind of look like that, but at the same time too, there's a lot of Japanese writing on the side, so it's hard to, well, perhaps, just justify this as a stylized G. It could be a lot more than that. The film will reportedly be a tragedy as the two monsters battle and go head to head, each one fulfilling a different role within the story. With the mutated Godzilla wanting to destroy Japan because of the hideous mutations it's received due to the bombs dropped within the city, whilst the other Godzilla tries to bring him home to their natural habitat. Serizawa, who has a central role in the film, will build a oxygen destroyer much like what we saw in the 1954 movie. But when it's activated to kill the mutated Godzilla, the twin will instead take the hit for its brother, sacrificing itself so Godzilla may live another day, leaving the king of the monsters to live and potentially star in a new film franchise. Now, in my honest opinion, this sounds really cool and I would really love to see that because it sounds like it would be a very unique take on the Godzilla series. series. It sounds action-packed and, well, a tragedy all rolled into one. There is actually 2 points in the trailer that may support this plot leak. When one of the leads states, "He will never forgive us." This could be in reference to the murder of Godzilla's twin and how Godzilla will never forget what they did to his species. Just like how Japan will never forget what happened in 1945. And with the final shot of a torched Godzilla roaring with anger at the sky, could be immediately following the death of its friend. And the civilians look on in horror as the one that caused so much misery still lives to torment them. Now, there may be some legitimacy to this leak. The film is, of course, going back to when it all started, and will be expanding upon the original concept, which means certain themes and iconography will be, of course, returning. Now, in the 1954 original, it was proposed that Gojira was in fact one of many that lived in the bottom of the ocean, thriving for millions of years, feeding on deep-sea organisms. But their habitat was destroyed by American hydrogen bomb tests. Dr. Yamane proposed Gojira was living amongst others of his kind prior to the destruction, leaving Godzilla as the last one standing, drawing him out of his natural habitat and seeking revenge. This idea is supported by official artwork from the 1954 Godzilla living with other Godzillas under the water before a huge explosion destroys their habitat, killing all of Godzilla's companions, burning him in the process, enraging him, and drawing him to the surface. So if -1 is bringing back concepts from the original and expanding upon it, we may see the idea of multiple Godzillas explored, and instead of them all dying from the explosion, they might fight against Godzilla -1 as a representation of all that is good and all that is bad of nuclear energy and the cost that it brings. Basically, both Godzillas will be the physical embodiment of both the light and the dark. A war on both perspectives of the use of the nuclear bomb and how, from the American point of view, it ended the war and saved lives, whilst from the Japanese perspective, it was an unnecessary use of force and took hundreds of thousands of lives in the most painful way possible. It could make -1 an excellent exploration of atomic power, something we have never really seen before from the Godzilla series. -1 could be the most impactful Godzilla film ever made. Now, always remember to take a leak with a grain of salt, but I personally would love to see this happen. But what do you think? Do you want to see 2 Godzillas in Godzilla -1? And do you like the idea of a natural Godzilla looking more like a orca or a whale-like creature? Let me know in the comments below. I personally think it's a really cool idea they could potentially have a natural Godzilla in this film, mainly because it would be expanding upon the actual original lore, which is kind of a, well, concept that's been seen before in certain other films, perhaps not really Godzilla related, but I could see it actually working out fairly well. One example that I can think of this, and a movie that I personally quite enjoyed, was called The Dark Crystal. Essentially, Netflix did a dubbed version of the original, which was essentially expanding upon the original idea, but unfortunately, back in the day, they were unable to actually expand upon that concept because it would have been essentially too difficult to actually film. So, Netflix stepped in several years later. Now, for some of my younger viewers, that movie might be a little terrifying in particular. Some of the monsters in that are not pretty, but very cool, and I would honestly kind of like to make one someday. But, at any rate, we're getting a little sidetracked from the original concept here. That kind of concludes, obviously, the fun facts for Godzilla -1 that will be coming up in theaters December 1st for, well, us Canadians like me, as well as the Americans. Now, I do believe that the Japanese are getting a slightly earlier release date than us, but personally, that only seems kind of fair. After all, Godzilla is kind of their baby. Ill regards, I'm very excited to see this film, and I hope you guys are excited as me. Now, one thing I should probably briefly mention here too, I do apologize to my regular viewers that I am slightly behind schedule here. I usually try to post once a week, but unfortunately life just kind of got in the way this time and I was unable to do that, and well, this Godzilla did take a little bit longer than expected, but I wanted to make sure that it was, well, done appropriately, and honestly, I think it turned out to be one of my best projects yet. Now, part of the reason for, well, the delay is because winter is soon coming here in Canada, unfortunately, so I'll be losing my cool thumbnails, unfortunately, at this point. But I should be building some dioramas for my dinosaurs, as well as various other projects very soon here. So that way, I still have some pretty cool pictures to take for thumbnails, and, well, use the sets, obviously, for film projects themselves. And if you obviously really enjoy this content and would like to see more and get updates in between projects, well, obviously I do shorts every day here anyway, so you're going to get the same information. But if you really like it, be sure to go check out the links in the post description where there's, well, links to my Facebook as well as Instagram handle. Now, unfortunately, there is a little bit of bad news here. Unfortunately, recently, I kind of threw my back at work pretty bad. For lack of a better term, I twisted it, and unfortunately, my back is not the greatest, unfortunately. I've got some pretty bad prior history with injuries in the past, so that was part of the delay, unfortunately. I don't really want to expand upon it too much. I'm not honestly here for a pity party by any means. I rather people admire my work, obviously, and yeah. Just unfortunately, I lost an entire day to that, and I probably will be going to the doctor shortly and kind of getting things checked out just to make sure that everything is okay, because yeah, mobility has been a slight issue, and Friday was completely bedridden, so I won't digress any further. This is an art channel, not an injury channel, but yeah, that's part of the delay, and I do apologize. Just hope everyone knows that I am only human, and I'm the only person essentially in production of this channel. So if I'm down, unfortunately, nothing basically gets done. Now that we've served, well, the bad news, it's time for some good news to end this video off with. Now, I was recently actually interviewed for a podcast, so I'd like to give a shout out to PT Russell. She recently started a podcast and has been following me for at least a couple years now, so she remembers this channel back when it was all about cars, believe it or not. Boy, we ventured far from that. So if you would like to learn more about, well, this stop motion world, be sure to go check out her podcast. Now, obviously, we talk about various projects and the, well, process of stop motion itself, so it gives you an idea how long this stuff actually does take. And, well, just to give you an extra little bit of a hook, the name Moose Motion actually does have a meaning, and the name is, well, basically described there. Again, thank you, PT. It was definitely an honor to be your first guest, and for those of you who want to check out the podcast, it's available on Spotify, and her handle there is Journaling with PT. I'll also provide a link in the post description. I should probably also mention my microphone unfortunately broke during the production of this video, so I also had to replace that, so that was another unexpected delay, so hopefully the audio is slightly better in this video in comparison to some of my other ones. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I honestly think this is some of my best work yet, and if you do agree, be sure to smash that like button as hard as a kaiju. Or perhaps leave a nice comment below. Honestly, that's probably one of the best things I get from this channel is the nice positive words of admiration that I get from, well, these projects and various other things that I do. It honestly means the world to me, and it means a lot that so many people find my artwork this endearing and, well, have been inspired by it. So thank you very much. You have no idea how much this means to me. So I hope this continues to grow and we continue this little, well, stop motion adventure. So if you're new to this channel, be sure to stomp on that subscribe button and have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new updates. I post daily shorts and usually weekly videos. At any rate, I will leave you guys to the glamour shots. I hope you enjoy them. Hey, thank you for sticking around to the very end of the video. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.